Okay, we're back. I really needed to make sure that that was recording. I don't know what's happening today, guys. Hey guys, what is up? Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Paula. If you may or may not know me, welcome. Welcome to the Spiritually Relatable channel, where we talk about spirituality, law of attraction, and all things relatable when it comes to navigating this spiritual journey. So this week's video is going to be, honestly, I have a lot of resistance towards talking about this for some reason. Like, I'm getting tongue-tied and tongue-twisted. So I know that all the more we have to talk about this subject and this topic. And it's a vulnerable one, but I also feel like it's something that we don't talk about in the spiritual community enough. And I don't think we bring awareness to this enough. And I want to use this platform for those things. I want us to raise conversations and have meaningful, impactful conversations that are real and not created from this state of bliss and joy and like spiritual bypassing. Because yes, I do feel like when you're walking on this spiritual journey, there's a lot of happiness, there's a lot of freedom, there's a lot of joy. But there's also a lot of darkness, sadness, anger, chaos, and confusion. The two coexist, right? So for me personally, over the last week, this spiritual journey has been journeying really hard. And I'm not gonna lie, you guys, I've been feeling alone. Now, the word alone is oftentimes perceived as a bad thing. And something that I wish I knew before I started my spiritual journey and before I knew most of the things that I know now is that this spiritual journey, oftentimes, you have to walk it alone. And the reason being is because a lot of the times you can't find yourself. Actually, more often than not, you cannot find yourself amidst people. Now, I'm not saying that relationships aren't essential, because I do think that relationships play a huge role into mirroring onto us what we still need to heal, what we don't like about ourselves. Similarly, the same things we like about ourselves that we're seeing projected onto another. But with that being said, the reality is, a good portion of this journey is going to entail you being alone and getting comfortable with being your own reference, to choose autonomy and to regain your sovereignty. Many of us have been so accustomed, and there's all these social conditionings where we feel like we have to be with our family, or we're responsible for our family, we're responsible for our friends, for our partners, for our kids, for our pets. And again, I just want to preface by saying this is not spiritual bypassing. I'm not saying that these things aren't important and they don't weigh a role in our lives. But a lot of the times, how many of us are so consumed by other people that we've never taken a look at ourselves, at what we really want, what we really desire. And if you've watched my previous video, which I'll link somewhere up here so you guys can watch it if you haven't, and this is your first time running across this channel, hi, welcome to the Spiritually Progressing or Spiritually Depressing. I wouldn't be me if I didn't put a little bit of satire in there, you know? But all that to say, how many of us have been so social conditioned that now that we're going through our spiritual healing journey, and this spiritual journey is about coming back to oneness. And what is oneness? What is oneness? I think that's the $1 million question, no? It's like we take this time to go within. We take this time to get to know ourselves, to really unbecome all of the things that our parents, our lineage, our ancestors, our friends, society has told us that we need to be. It's called the deprogramming. And I remember a long time ago, and I'm going to be very careful with the words I use because I'm not trying to get this video taken down. But a while ago, I was doing a sacred medicine journey. And let me know in the comments down below if you want to hear more in depth about that specific story, because I have a lot to say about that. But for now, we're just going to leave it at sacred plant ceremony. I did a sacred plant ceremony, and I remember it was my first time, by the way. And I remember the biggest message that came through during that time was when I felt source. So the Most High, higher consciousness, God, whoever you resonate with. I felt them tell me, P, you're not here to become anything. You're here to remember. And the concept of this channeling, I remember that even though the moment was so subtle, the impact has stuck with me, and it's been like 3 years now. And that is genuinely at the core of my being. My motto is that I'm not here to become anything. I think the concept of becoming is a little bit of an issue because it subconsciously tells us that we're not, and there's a state of lack. And I think a lot of us collectively on an energetic level, we are healing this state of aloneness. We're healing the state of feeling like we need to become someone. It's all very connected to that sense of loneliness, to that sense of oneness, that sense of remembering. Because if you can remember where you come from and who you are, then you don't feel alone, because you feel so connected with everything. You know who you are, you understand, and you overstand others. So if you're going through this spiritual journey, a lot of the times it entails quote unquote loneliness. And the reason why the loneliness comes through is because, like I said before, you can't really hear intuition in the midst of a lot of people and chaos. Now, that is not to say that you're going to be a recluse and that you're going to be in hermit mode for the rest of your life and not interact, right? I think life is a balance. And I think it's really important to talk about these things because oftentimes I see so many people in my clients, in my friendships, in the people I interact with, in events, online, and I see so many people lose sight of the fact that even though we are spiritual beings first, everything is spiritual first. For example, if your work is not working out, if your relationships, if your happiness, it really is an inside job, which is spiritual, it's emotional. It's not something you can see with the physical eyes, but it's something you can see with your intuition, you can feel, right? So it's an inside job. So a lot of the times, that's why we say as within, so without. But you're a spirit first, and then you're a human. This is why your body, your physical vessel can't live without your spirit. And I think that's important. I think life is a balance. So you're going to live in the 5D plus consciousness, depending on how evolved you are and how aware and how open, right? This is not about good or bad or who's better or who's worse or who's more developed or who's underdeveloped. Guys, we're all in different journeys, very different journeys. But I think the main thing here is balance. I see so many people sometimes living so out of body, what I mean by that is like, this is where we tend to get like spiritual psychosis, which again, if you want me to talk about that, we can do another video more in depth on that and my experience with that and things like that. We can talk about that furthermore. But I see so many people start getting like spiritual psychosis because of the fact that they ascend too quickly and they get wrapped up in this higher dimensions, which is a beautiful thing. But then spirit, source, whoever you resonate with is telling them, hey, you need to come back to the flesh. You need to come back to the human. You need to come back to earth. Because believe it or not, a lot of people, that is a form of escapism. You know my Spanglish, so you get my little accent. But anyways, It's a form of escapism. So a lot of the times when we tend to go up here more than we do being here, we're running away from something internally, which is creating that loneliness and that divide. And a lot of us, at the core being of a lot of what we fear is loneliness. We fear loneliness, which is why in this spiritual journey, the biggest lesson that is faced, your biggest fear that is faced, that is brought up to the surface immediately when you go through the spiritual awakening is isolation, is loneliness. And it's the core wound that we all have. It really is. Now, obviously, people go through life and you learn to cope with it, you transcend it, you become empowered, and some people don't, right? But I know for me, from my personal journey, it has been all about learning how to stand on my own. Now, sharing a little bit about my story and hopes that it'll motivate you and inspire you to do your own healing work and to look within yourself and seek for those answers that you're looking for outwardly. I have been studying my natal chart, my astrological footprint, and also studying a little bit of my parents and really diving deeper into my inner child and my shadow. And I've been doing this for a bit now, and don't get it twisted, okay? Like, I'm still healing. We're all healing whilst we're simultaneously healed at the same time. Okay, so everything I'm sharing is like I'm very much still learning with you guys. I'm not perfect by any means, and I don't ever want to portray perfection. That's just not reality, right? I'm perfectly imperfect. That's it. That's all you need to know. Anyways, I've been studying a lot of myself. And what I mean by studying is I don't mean changing. I don't mean critiquing. I don't mean nagging or judging. I am just observing. I am remembering. And ever since I could remember, I have always had an abandonment wound. And a couple days ago, I was sitting in meditation. And I was meditating and I was crying and I was releasing, because I'm going to be honest with you guys. I feel like this past week, I've been spiritually depressing. Like, I'm not going to lie. I know I'm spiritually progressing, but at the same time, I literally felt like I was spiritually depressing as well. And it's because I was hitting so many inner child wounds around abandonment and being left out. So as I'm seeing my chart, and I'm feeling all these feelings and I'm meditating and I'm transmuting and I'm removing and I'm sending love to all these parts of me that feel unworthy, that feel lonely, that feel like they can't be seen and I can't show it out into the world, because if I'm not perfect, how are people gonna trust me? And like, then it goes back to loneliness. Like, if I am, my biggest fear was if I showed up into the world as P, who I am in my entirety, not only will I take up space, but it won't be accepted. And if I am not accepted, I am cast away and I'll end up lonely, and then it's linked to death, right? So it's like, it's all a cycle. And I was looking at my chart, and when I was looking at my chart, my South Node, which is my past life, was very much wounded in being abandoned, being scarce, fending for myself. It's this fight or flight mode that in the opposite token in this life, I get to experience partnership. I get to experience oneness, community, which is what I'm doing now, right? Is creating community. Now, the way to create community and to beat loneliness is by stepping into your authenticity. And authenticity takes time, and you need loneliness for that. You can't develop in a place where you're still listening to a lot of the chatter. Now, I just want to preface and say, because I've said this before and I'll say it again, this is not to say that you're going to go into hermit mode and not ever socialize in your life. You're still a human. You're still meant to exist here. You can coexist here and coexist here as well and keep it balanced, very Libra-like. But there are going to be moments where you are secluded, where you are on your own. And this is because you're meant to rediscover and re-remember who you are. And that is the journey. That is part of the lesson. That is part of what actually creates. And it's so funny because I remember this channeling that Spirit gave me a while ago. And I saw one of my good friends post about it. And immediately I knew it was like confirmation. And it says, when you're on the path disappears. So a lot of the times, if you're finding yourself right now extremely lonely, feeling like you want community, you want like-minded people, just know you're not alone. It feels like that right now, for sure. But the way to beat loneliness, the way to beat fear when it comes to loneliness is to face it. The only way to heal is to feel, and the only way through is through. There's no way around it. There is no easy fix. You can free yourself anytime by choosing to face the fear and meet it with love. So what does this mean? It's okay if you're fearful of ending up alone or being alone and not having friends or family or love. It's okay. Just because you face an emotion does not mean you are that emotion or that you'll become that emotion. I feel like a lot of people oftentimes run away from their emotions because they're so afraid that if they feel them, that means that they are it. So for example, if you have a depressive episode, a lot of people are afraid of letting out the crying that it might take in order to release themselves from that depression, because of the fear that if they feel that, they're going to be stuck there forever. It's the same way with healing, right? A lot of people don't want to heal and they don't want to take a look at their selves internally because they fear that by healing, they won't know who they are anymore. Because the reality is, the more you heal, the more you meet yourself with love, the more you transcend a lot of aspects of yourself that were connected with your ego and your shadow that told you that's who you were, when really you were never that. You are that part of you that's being rebirthed and seen as new. So this is why a lot of people also, when they go on this loneliness journey, they feel kind of lost, right? Because when you're on the path disappears. And it's not that the path disappears, it's that you begin to embody more of your higher self. And that's unknown to you because you've been living so much in your ego. Remember, your ego is the one that tells you, if you don't have this, you're going to pass. If you don't have this, you're going to pass. And it keeps you limited because its time is limited. But your soul is very eternal. It's very patient. So it takes time. So in this loneliness journey, in this spiritual journey, you'll be alone sometimes. And in that aloneness is when you'll be able to discover your higher self. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it to you guys. Sometimes it is going to be painful because you are unlearning so much of what you were told you needed to learn and become. I've said that before and I'm standing on that 100%. But then you're going to feel so much freedom once you burn and transcend those barriers. You're going to feel the freedom, and eventually you will align with like-minded people, such as myself, such as other beautiful people that are going to be in this community and even around you. So all that to say, I think we've said a lot today. There's been a lot on this video that's come through. But all that to say is, don't be afraid of being alone. Embrace it. It's a part of the journey. And it's in the aloneness that you'll discover that you're never really alone. We're all very much connected. And it is okay to want to experience that with another, to experience that with friends and colleagues and community. It'll come with time. But for now, your responsibility is to tend to yourself, to your needs, and focus on you. Who are you? truly, like, who are you at the core of your being? Before society, before your parents, before your friends, ex-lovers told you who you needed to be. And I think that's the biggest question that will help you heal with this whole coping of being alone. But with that being said, that concludes today's video. Hopefully you got something amazing out of it. I am sending you guys so much love, and thank you guys so much for subscribing to the channel, for supporting, and for being here on this side of the fence, because I'm actually pretty excited about this, and I hope you guys are too. So more content coming, more topics that are down to earth, very rooted in truth are coming. And if you guys have any suggestions, feel free to drop them down below. But that is it for today's video. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you next time.